Welcome to Big Ten's Best. I'm Cassidy Hubbarth, and today we're taking the Big Ten's Best time machine back to the 1980s. 5 different schools won or shared a conference title during the decade of the 80s, and for a lot of those championship teams, running backs led the way. Let's start things off at number 10 for the Big Ten's Best running backs of the 1980s. Number 10, Darrell Thompson.
Thompson gets off tackle. He's got outside room. Breaks it into the end zone.
Thompson was a consistent runner with serious speed who averaged over 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns a season during his 4 years in Minneapolis.
Darrell Thompson was a brute running back. Ran straight up and down. He was one of the big backs that had terrific speed, tremendous vision.
My playing across from him and just seeing this guy, I mean, I'm talking about, just ran hard, like almost like a wildness to him style of runner.
Not only was Thompson the Golden Gophers' all-time leading rusher with 4,654 yards, he also held the school record for career all-purpose yards with over 5,100 yards.
Got the ball yet. Here he comes. Thompson to the 35, 40, and he's close to another first down.
Thompson recorded 23 100-yard rushing performances. But perhaps the best run of his career was a 98-yarder in 1987 versus Michigan.
Coming out of there is Thompson. He's got some running room. Look out. He could break it. He could break it. 45. He's to the 40. To the 30. 20. This will be 98 yards. Touchdown.
I remember him breaking a run against, I think it was Michigan at the time. Just big and strong and just fast.
Thompson finished his career with 43 total touchdowns, more than any other Golden Gopher in history. Good enough for number 10 on our list of the best Big Ten running backs of the 1980s.
Hand off to Thompson, diving, fighting for the goal line. He's got it. Touchdown.
Number 9 on our countdown is a Penn State running back. I know, Penn State didn't start playing Big Ten football until 1993, but they're in the Big Ten now, and number 9 on our list made a whole lot of people smile in Happy Valley during the mid-1980s. Number 9, D.J. Dozier.
This is Dozier. First down and touchdown.
William Henry Dozier Jr., known to folks in State College, PA as DJ, was turning heads from the very day he set foot on campus. In the fall of 1983, Dozier made the rest of the country stand up and take notice as he rushed for over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns as a freshman.
Breaks loose and it is gone. Touchdown.
Dozier was smooth and elusive with a signature move that frustrated tacklers.
He really had the ability to spin out of tackles. Some guys can break tackles with a leg, or they can break tackles if they're hitting a certain way, but he could spin his way out of a tackle.
Dozier led the Nittany Lions in rushing and receiving his senior year in 1986. The same year, Joe Paterno's team went undefeated and won the national championship. By the time Dozier's career was over, he had amassed over 3,200 yards rushing and scored 25 rushing touchdowns. None bigger than the last one Dozier scored that gave Penn State a 14-10 lead over Miami in the 1987 Fiesta Bowl.
And it's Dozier. Dozier scores.
Shane Conlon had picked off a Vinny Testaverde pass, and he run it back to the 6-yard line, and on second down, Dozier saw the hole, went right through the hole into the end zone, and that made it 14-10. Then obviously Penn State made that hold up.
Not a bad way to end a career, and good enough for number 9 on our list for the best Big Ten running backs of the 1980s.
Gives the ball to D.J. Dozier, shoots it up the middle, touchdown.
Number 8, Butch Woolfolk.
Big drive, they're going to go. Diving is Woolfolk, and he's in. Touchdown, Michigan.
Butch came in with a reputation as a track guy. Bo made a big issue out of, are you a track guy or are you a football player? You're going to be tough enough to be a football player, and he certainly proved that he was, and he could go the distance.
Butch was a different runner. He never looked like he was working hard, and he was so smooth. He was a very smooth runner, and as soon as you got him into the secondary, you put points on the board.
Even though Woolfolk played only 2 seasons in the 1980s, they were memorable ones for the Big Blue faithful. Woolfolk was one of the most productive backs in college football during the early 80s, rushing for over 3,800 yards and 29 touchdowns during his career in Ann Arbor.
Butch Woolfolk was the first three-time All-Big Ten selection. And it wasn't one game that made him. It was his career. That's what made Butch Woolfolk.
Woolfolk was named Rose Bowl MVP during his junior year in 1980 and followed that up with his best year for the Maize and Blue, rushing for over 1,459 yards, including 7 100-yard games in 1981. Quite an impressive resume for number 8 on our list of the best Big Ten running backs of the 1980s. Coming up next, we're counting down the best running backs of the 1980s. Who's number 1? Stick around. Welcome back to the Big Ten's best running backs of the 1980s. The University of Iowa, long known for developing great quarterbacks under legendary coach Hayden Fry, especially during the 1980s, also featured an explosive tailback that decade. Number 7 on our list was a multi-dimensional star who did it all for the black and gold, helping lead the Hawkeyes to the Rose Bowl. Number 7, Ronnie Harmon.
Looking for room and out of bounds at the 2-yard line.
Ronnie Harmon was as good a player as anyone, as good as anyone I've ever been around. You talk about someone, you could line him up as a wide receiver.
It's tipped and then it's caught by Harmon.
If it was such a person before Barry Sanders, that would be Ronnie Harmon. First time I seen Ronnie run, I was saying, man, this guy here, this man here could stop on a dime. I mean, got moves.
He could head fake and then juke you right out of your cleats. He had a great ability to get to the sideline, and he could dance along that sideline like no Iowa running back that I've ever seen.
Harmon finished his career with 146 receptions for over 2,000 yards and 10 TDs. And on the ground, Harmon was equally as productive, rushing for over 2,200 yards and 22 touchdowns. In 1985, Harmon led the Hawkeyes in both rushing and receiving. But more importantly, he led the black and gold to a Big Ten title and Iowa's first Rose Bowl invitation in 5 years. Upon graduation, Harmon held Hawkeye career records for total touchdowns and all-purpose yards. Let's add number 7 on the Big Ten's best running backs of the 80s to that impressive list of accomplishments. Number 6, Blair Thomas.
Dozier gives it to Thomas, coming back the other way, seal block, touchdown.
Blair Thomas, in my opinion, might have been the best player I've seen in 30 years coming out of Philadelphia.
Give it to Thomas. He's gone.
Blair Thomas, great speed, and somebody that in 1986 could make big plays at big moments for them.
Thomas began the 1986 season as a part-time tailback, but he quickly emerged as a star, averaging 8.4 yards per carry and helping Penn State to an undefeated season and the 1986 College Football National Championship.
He was just a man, like a machine, because he's about 5'9", but he ran like he was like 250. Breaking tackles, had speed, agility.
1987 was Thomas's breakout season as he rushed for over 1,400 yards and 11 touchdowns. The Philadelphia native also at the time broke the Penn State single-season record for all-purpose yards. After sitting out the 1988 season with a knee injury, Thomas returned with a purpose in 1989.
He had to rehab that knee, came all the way back, and in 1989 had an outstanding season.
Thomas.
In 1989, Thomas closed out the decade with another 1,000-yard season. Number 32 put an exclamation point on his senior year with 6 straight 100-yard games to finish the season.
Thomas was a dynamic runner who could carry the load whenever you needed it.
Over 3,300 yards rushing, 21 rushing touchdowns, and over 4,500 all-purpose yards. Those are big-time numbers, big enough for number 6 on our list of the best Big Ten running backs of the 1980s. As we reach the top 5 on our list of the Big Ten's best running backs of the 1980s, we return to Ann Arbor and check in on a multi-talented running back who did it all for Bo's Maize and Blue during the 1980s. Number 5, Jamie Morris.
Pitch back to Jamie. To the 10, to the 5, touchdown.
Bo recruited him out of Massachusetts at that he's a cute little kid. I think he'll be a good kick returner. And then all of a sudden, Jamie just got better and better, worked harder and harder in practice, and became this solid running back that at one point became Michigan's all-time leading rusher.
Here he goes, Jamie Morris. He's headed for the record.
I always picture myself as one of those bruising little running backs. I wasn't the guy that's going to take it to the end zone, but I'm going to move the chains a little bit further down the field.
Jamie Morris moved the chains starting in his freshman season when he rushed for 574 yards. He continued to frustrate Big Ten defenses, running for over 1,000 yards in each of the next 3 seasons, culminating with a then Michigan single-season rushing record of 1,703 yards as a senior. Catching the ball out of the backfield, Morris was a dual threat, and his 99 career receptions was a Michigan receiving record for running backs.
Gets it off down the middle, caught, and touchdown Morris.
Jamie could compete, and he was a hard runner. I didn't like to see him run against the Buckeyes too often because he ran the ball with the purpose, was trying to, prove that, all the naysayers wrong.
Morris saved his best performances for the biggest games. His 210 yards rushing in Michigan's 1986 win at the Horseshoe still stands as one of the great individual performances in the long and illustrious history of the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry.
On the option, he pitches to Morris. Touchdown, Wolverines!
Morris set the Michigan career all-purpose yardage record with 6,201 yards. Almost 4,400 of those yards came on the ground. Throw in 28 career touchdowns, and what you get is number 5 on our list of the Big Ten's best running backs of the 1980s.
Morris hammers to the one and in for the touchdown.
Brings us to number 4, and back to Happy Valley we go for a running back who came from a tiny high school in West Virginia to lead the Nittany Lions to their first ever national championship in 1982. Number 4, Kurt Warner.
2 fullbacks and the ball is to Warner. Kurt Warner going to the outside. It's a foot race to the flag. Touchdown, Penn State.
Humble beginnings in Pineville, West Virginia didn't stop Penn State's Kurt Warner from accomplishing big things in Happy Valley.
His speed, his ability to cut was really remarkable and was the kind of running back that you really build a national championship around.
Warner slashing through to the 37-yard line.
Warner led the Nittany Lions in rushing in 1980, 1981, and 1982. And by the time number 25 left State College, Warner held 42 Penn State rushing records, including total yards at 3,398 and 18 100-yard performances.
He had good vision and good speed and was able to create this acceleration that he needed to have to break long runs.
Warner's junior and senior seasons were mirror images of each other as he rushed for just over 1,000 yards and scored 8 rushing touchdowns during each year. His senior season was a little bit sweeter as Warner and quarterback Todd Blackledge led the Nittany Lions to a victory in the 1983 Sugar Bowl against Georgia and Heisman Trophy winner Herschel Walker, locking up head coach Joe Paterno's first ever national title.
Second down and 12. Ball goes to Kurt Warner. Gets around the corner. Cuts it back. Great run by Warner. First down, Lions. Inside.
Kurt Warner always had the ability in bowl games to come up big and actually outrush the other key guy. And in the Sugar Bowl game against Georgia, he rushed for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Herschel Walker rushed for 104 yards.
Penalty flags. Kurt Warner with the ball. He's in the end zone. Touchdown, Penn State.
Warner also ranks second in career all-purpose yardage with 4,982 yards and scored 33 total touchdowns. With those kinds of numbers, there's no surprise that Penn State's Kurt Warner ranks 4th on our list of the Big Ten's best running backs of the 1980s.
It's Warner. Touchdown.
Number 3, Keith Byers.
Tom Zach gives it to Byers. He's got it.
Coming off a 1,000-yard, 20-touchdown season as a sophomore in 1983, expectations were big for Keith Byers in Columbus in 1984, and he didn't disappoint.
I've been always unique. I know when I was in college, the guys, they used to say I was a cross between Earl Campbell and Jim Brown. Whenever I got the ball, you was going to be guaranteed, 4 or 5 yards, a crack. And it's not going to be fun, tackling me for 60 minutes on a Saturday.
Byers led the nation in rushing, all-purpose yards, and in scoring. His 1,764 yards on the ground eclipsed Archie Griffin's Ohio State single-season record set a decade earlier.
He was a triple threat. I mean, he could run on the straight handoff. He could overpower people. He had huge oven mitts for hands, but he could catch the ball softly.
Tomczak back to throw, has lots of time, gets his pass off, wide open. Keith Byers, the tailback.
Particularly for a man that size, he had tremendous speed around the ends. And you put a guy that size in there with this combination of power and speed, and that's pretty hard to defend against.
Byers' greatest performance came in a 45-38 comeback win against Illinois, in which Byers led the Buckeyes back from a 24-0 deficit by rushing for 274 yards and 5 touchdowns.
Byers turning the corner.
At that time, we didn't call it being in the zone. But, in retrospect, I was certainly in the zone. At the time, you didn't know how special, it would be. But I knew it was going to be one that I would talk about in a long time.
The highlight of the historic 24-point comeback came on Byers' 4th touchdown run, when he scampered 67 yards, losing his shoe in the process.
Right before I was starting to cut back to the middle of the field, I felt my shoe coming off. Then I just kicked it off, and I just had to turn it on. I didn't want nobody to step on my foot, and made my mom happy. I didn't have any holes in my socks for a change.
Byers led Ohio State to the Big Ten title in 1984 and was named first-team All-American, finishing second in the Heisman Trophy balloting to Boston College's Doug Flutie.
In my mind, he should have been the Heisman Trophy winner in 1984. He was really that good.
Byers was considered a Heisman frontrunner heading into his senior season in 1985, but a toe injury kept him off the field for most of his senior year. Byers finished his career at Ohio State with over 4,000 all-purpose yards, including over 3,200 rushing yards and 50 touchdowns. Oh yeah, and 1 missing shoe. Number 2, Anthony Thompson.
Thompson, he's got it. He's to the 10, 5, touchdown, Indiana.
AT was a big back with big talents and promptly led the Hoosiers in rushing as a freshman, as well as helping Indiana reach its first bowl game in 7 years.
He was one of those guys that 2 or 3 guys needed to bring him down if they were going to make a solid tackle on him and keep him from gaining any yards.
My attitude was that I was going to arrive, if you're going to tackle me, I was going to arrive with bad intentions.
Well, I'll tell you, he made something out of nothing and got a first down.
And that was to run you over or try to run around you or run through you.
Touchdown! Anthony Thompson is in the record book.
He was very quick, had very quick feet. They played on that AstroTurf back in the day when he played, but he was really lethal if he broke cover on the outside. If there was enough of a crease there, he could get that crease and take it all the way.
Thompson's numbers continued to get bigger and bigger during his career in Bloomington. By the time Thompson's career was over, the Terre Haute native held nearly every single Hoosier rushing and scoring record.
Thompson, and here he goes. He's got a first down and then some.
Prototypical college running back. Great downhill between the tackle, power running back.
Thompson rushed for over 1,000 yards in 3 straight seasons, finishing with a career total of 5,299 yards. His 67 career rushing touchdowns stood as an NCAA record until 1998.
Anthony scored 5 more touchdowns than anybody in the history of football had at that point. So he was just a dynamic player with so much heart. He delivered every time he got the ball.
Thompson's one shining moment came as a senior in 1989 when the All-American rushed for a Big Ten record and then NCAA record 377 yards versus Wisconsin, locking up the Big Ten's Most Valuable Player award for the 2nd straight season.
They just kept on feeding me the ball. And there was one time when somebody said I had, 300 yards, and I couldn't believe it. Most important, we won the game.
Thompson earned several postseason awards, but like Keith Byers, was the runner-up for the Heisman, finishing second to Notre Dame's Tim Brown. And second place is also where Anthony Thompson lands on our list of the best Big Ten running backs of the 1980s.
Snell, Thompson diving. Touchdown, Indiana.
Coming up, one Lorenzo White.
Need 4. White's got it. Gets a big hole. Seal blocking. Beautiful blocking by Michigan State. Touchdown, Spartans.
Making the leap from sunny South Florida to East Lansing wasn't too hard for Lorenzo White. He brought the heat from Hollywood, Florida to Spartan Stadium, and when he left, White was one of the Big Ten Conference's all-time great running backs.
I was a slasher, a cutback style runner. I like to throw a lot of moves, but you know, if I had to run you over, I would do it.
To put it simply, White was a workhorse. Give him the ball and get out of the way. 30, 40, 50 carries a game. He wanted the ball every play, every Saturday.
He didn't seem to ever get tired. You're like, Lo, you know you got the ball 20 sometimes in the first half. You gonna have anything in the gas for the tank for the second half, and he get the ball another 15, 20 times the second half, and you know run his last carry like he did the first carry.
White again. Inside the 5. Touchdown.
White was named a first-team All-American as a sophomore when he led the nation in rushing and became the first back in Big Ten history to rush for more than 2,000 yards in a single season.
Lorenzo White, he's kind of the total package. I mean, he's elusive. He runs with power. He caught the ball well out of the backfield. And so I think it's probably why he's number one.
Over the course of his career, White carried the ball over 1,000 times, rushing for 4,887 yards, despite missing most of the 1986 season due to injury. As a senior in 1987, White ran for over 1,500 yards to earn All-American honors for a second time, thanks in large part to performances like the one he had against Indiana, when he carried the ball 56 times for 292 yards.
Your adrenaline is flowing through the game, and you're just trying to, you know, win. And I really never even know how many times I carried the ball.
Lorenzo White, touchdown. On first down, White again. That's carry number 40. My goodness, he's going for 100 carries today. It's White. Touchdown. This is an ovation for Lorenzo White.
That season, Michigan State won the Big Ten, going undefeated in conference play and made their first trip to the Rose Bowl in 22 years.
I wanted to go to a place where, when I left there, Lorenzo White would have his own legacy, you know, have his own standing. I always said that.
White finished his Spartan career as the school's all-time leading rusher and found the end zone 43 times. Another Spartan record.
White. Touchdown.
So let's take a final look at the best running backs of the 1980s.